Longest field goal in Giants history is 57 yards.
Love the crowd smartly quieting each other down.
From 58, Gano's kick is short. Oh. And this game ends in a 20-20 tie.
This is nothing but that sports talk. Yeah, there was no winners or losers at MetLife Stadium. So welcome to this episode, Nothing But That Sports Talk. Rafique, Louison, Ryan Walker. Yes, I know the Rams came back and defeat the Oakland Raiders, but obviously the Rams, all they do is just shatter the Rams' playoff hopes. It's the Raiders' playoff hopes. But let's talk about the Giants and the Washington Commanders ending in a tie last weekend. When we talked about this via text, you weren't a happy camper. You were so disgusted by the results. So elaborate on that.
I was just disgusted because they don't the schedule don't get no better and it don't get more easier for them. I was there. We haven't been on for a while, even though we all been doing our own thing, and then you're still doing the projects. We'll talk about the high school thing at a later moment. We're starting off with the Giants and football, but yeah, I was there 3 weeks ago now to the date, I think, when they got
smoked by the Detroit Lions. And well, you did say not to take the Lions for granted, and I agree.
Correct.
Glad I took your advice, because that game, Jamal Williams was all over the place, getting rushing touchdowns on the spread outs, and then on Thanksgiving Day, you suffered that same fate against the Dallas Cowboys, and now the Giants are on a 2-game losing streak plus the time with the Commanders. So yeah, since the last time he was on the air.
Well, but when I was looking on the totality of the schedule, and here's the backtrack in retrospect. When we talked football early in the year, we talking about my New York Football Giants. Mm-hmm. If you can recall, I predicted the Giants to go 7-10, right?
Yes,
and with how bad they've been over the last 6 years, 7-10, to a smart, real Giants fan, 7-10 feels like 16-0 because they've been really bad the last 6 years, right? This is a fair analysis of my own team. So with me saying 7-10, that enough to me meant that they were going to be playing more competitive, smarter football week by week. And as long as they gave the fans that product, because Giants fans are loyal and strong, they're not going to just switch sides. You know what I mean? But they do want to come to the stadium or turn the TV on and at least see them fight. And that's the resolve that they lost. They're competing at a high level this year. They made the right decision so far with Joe Shane as the general manager, bringing in Brian Daboll, who's been a breath of fresh air, most likely still the coach of the year in the NFL this year for the job he's done with this Giants football team. And they had a lot of questions to get answered this year. Is Daniel Jones the quarterback? Is he going to be the one for now and possibly in the future? Is Saquon going to be better coming back off the injury? How will he do? Is the offensive line actually progressing and getting better? What will they look like on defense? How will this first-time coach do? There was a lot of, there's a lot of questions and stuff like that. The GM cleared up a lot of money. The Giants have a lot of picks coming up soon too, and will have more money coming up in the off season as well too. So now they can start building the team completely the way Daboll and Shane, Joe Shane wants it. So now the season starts now, and you and everybody else. And I mean, it's not a knock to you because you're all New York all day, no matter what it is at the end of the day. Guys are saying to me, "Oh, you say they're 7-10. You see, they're 2-0. Oh, they're 3-1. Oh, they're 4-1. Oh, they're 5-2. Oh, they're 6-. Oh, I said, guys, I already said if I get 7-10, I'm fine. So anything they do that's extra, I'm fine. Now, at the moment, I look good because they have 7 wins. I pray that for the rest of the season, they don't lose the rest of the games to make me right that way. But it's still possible. Now, as you know, the season went along. Boom. They had a game early in the year against the Cowboys, against Cooper Rush, right? I wish they could have that game back. I thought they had a very good chance to win that game. And at one point in the game, they were up a touchdown, but they let that one go. And that's a whole different story. So you lose that as your first game. You lose the Seattle Seahawks game, which was tough to go down to play in Seattle at the time, with your bye week coming up the next week. And you caught Seattle playing good during a good time. And that's another thing about the NFL. The NFL is not necessarily about who you play, even though it is about who you play, it's when you play them. See, sometimes you can play a really bad team, but they're actually playing good in the last 2 weeks. So you just caught them while they're playing good, if you understand what I mean. So
exactly.
the Seahawks were playing really good football at that time before they came in. Gino was making plays, getting comfortable with them. Their defense was, doing and making things, and it's hard to win down there. They've kind of had a little slope since that. I think they've lost 2 out of their last 3, or maybe 3 out of their last 4, because as we can see, the San Francisco 49ers have now come to first place in that division, right? The Niners are now starting to play better football with whoever the quarterback is going to be, because Jimmy G's out for the year, and Trey Lance is out for the year. So I'm hearing, who knows? They didn't. Well, we'll talk about Baker in a second too. It's clearly they didn't pick up Baker Mayfield, but nevertheless. So, and then we played the Detroit Lions. That when we played, the 3 weeks previously before playing them, they're 1-6, and they don't know what's going on with their team. They bring in Jeff Saturday as an interim. He gives them a different breath of fresh air. They start winning some. I'm sorry. Saturday's on the Colts. I'm talking about the big offensive lineman. Oh Lord, who's the coach down there? He was an ex line player, a tight end back in the days on them. But he came and gave them a different breath of fresh air, and they actually started. It's so crazy because, like I said, it's about when you play a team. At the moment, statistically, when we played the Lions, they were 28th in defense. However, in those last 3 weeks, they started playing better defense. So they finally figured it out with their front four and everything. And they do hit. And here was the other thing I told you about that game. I said, Jared Goff always plays well against the Giants. And the last time he was there, when he played them against the Rams, he lit us apart.
Yeah, I remember it was a 51-17 game back when Jared Goff was quarterback at the time. I believe it was a 2017 regular season game. When
I know it was bad. I hope it was. It was really 51-17.
Yes, it was. It was really that bad. I remember that game from the bottom of my heart. And then
he tore us apart.
They tore us apart. A few years later, when we played them in their field during the COVID pandemic year, the Giants defense defended well. They just couldn't score a touchdown when it mattered.
Right. There was a time we played a game against them. The year we were 6-10. And we lost to them actually 17-9. It was close all the way through. And I think Cooper Rush caught a play over the middle of the field and ran for like 60
Jones
yards. And that pretty much
in the game when he had a chance to bring downfield title with touchdown plus 2 points.
100%.
Yeah, but now with Jared Goff, Detroit Lions era, you can see they're playing well. They just smoked the Jacksonville Jaguars. Oh yeah, they're the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The Jaguars stink, but and then now, so here was the biggest thing about the Giants. Here's what we also got to remember too. One, this year, no excuses. This year they've had a lot of injuries. Guys have went down
for the year.
Right. At
least think what Barkley and Daniel Jones was playing healthy. They were the healthiest as they could be in a few years.
I'm glad they are, because if they weren't healthy on offense, they'd have no wins. That's their offense. I mean, remember Shepard.
They're good. I mean, let's be fair. The Giants have a good rushing attack.
Right. Well, Saquon leads the league in rushing. So
on Heineke last week, which is the defensive pressure that was non-existent in the second half against the Detroit Lions in the Dallas Cowboys, and then throughout that game against the Detroit Lions, what you went to like literally a game prior to the loss to the Cowboys. But just to stay on course, to talk about this most recent game that happened, the Giants they have a good they do all right stopping the run. Aside from that, starting off 10-0, which I'm talking about the deficit they've had at the beginning of the game. By the way, they pressure Heineke all throughout before Heineke woke up and brought the ball downfield to tie the game up, and that's pretty much it.
Well, and see, now that brings back to what's going on with Light, which why at the Detroit game I was very concerned. I wanted to kind of be greedy and get the Seahawks game, but I knew that would be tough over there going off the bye week. So you take that as a loss. 6-2 going to good job. You come off the bye week or whatever the case may be. You got to get that Detroit Lions game, because even though they were playing better at that time, once again, that's a game where the Giants scored the first touchdown, but I should have known it was going to be bad because they missed the extra point.
And the tide turned when that Hitchison guy caught the interception early in the game.
Right.
He was in his early second quarter or late first quarter or so.
That's always been
that turned the tide big time.
In hate to sound so redundant like Brian says with that, but whenever we've lost, DJ has turned the ball over. The Cowboys game, he didn't have a lot, but I believe he did throw a pick in that Cowboys. No, it wasn't that. Neal got killed that game, and that's where DeMarcus Lawrence, from the Dallas Cowboys, just went nuts and had like 5 sacks. I think DJ might have had a pick. I'll try to see if I can remember that. But I know in the Seahawks game, it wasn't DJ with the turnovers. Richie James had the 2 fumbles on the punt returns, and that absolutely demoralized the team from there. That they didn't have the chance to win with that. The third game, the Lions game, he threw the 2 interceptions, which was killer. But that's the biggest thing. You start that game off, you're winning. You got to find a way to at home to capitalize on that game, especially since you have a short week against the Dallas Cowboys, who the Giants have absolutely been abysmal against the Giants, against the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles in their last 13 contests against those individual teams. The Cowboys are now
the Eagles lost the last 2 years at the MetLife Stadium last year.
Stop it! Stop! Stop! The Cowboys are 12-1.
I'm talking about the Eagles,
Giants.
The Cowboys.
The Eagles are like 11-1 against us in the last 12. Go Google it right now.
I'm just saying they lost the last 2 years at MetLife Stadium. Last year they lost. I'm talking about the Eagles losing at MetLife Stadium to the Giants. I mean, yes,
that's the only 2 times we beat them.
Yes, there's a loss to Philadelphia. I'm not going to take away from that. And prior years, I mean, they lost to them on the road in 2020. They lost to them on the road in 2021. I can remember it, Ryan. I witnessed it.
Two losses, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the Eagles losing at MetLife Stadium twice the last 2 years.
That's the only 2 times we've beat them in the last 6 years.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Do you think they're going to win this Sunday?
Nope.
Exactly. You don't.
I'm praying.
Me too. I'm praying too.
But Jalen Hurts has had the best year of his life. And Daniel Jones, he's decent, but he's capable of turning the ball over. The passing offense, the only good offensive pass, the only good wide receiver you have right now is Darius Slayton.
Right. Listen, anything happens any given Sunday. So yes, the Giants have a chance, and it is a division game. So division games are more tightly contested, especially when you know each other. It's a hated rivalry. They don't like each other. So they will be everybody's going to play very tough and physical this weekend. I get it. But at the end of the day, they have to play perfect, flawless, no turnover football. And here goes the other thing with the Giants Eagles game. They can't have the Eagles is a very interesting team. They're absolutely phenomenal. They're talented all across the board, right? They also have their pass rusher Adams that came back last week with the acquisition of Quinn they got earlier in the mid-year with the trade. but they had a good front four to begin with anyway. The Eagles are a very spurt offense. They'll have a time where they scored nothing, and then they'll have a whole quarter to score 21 points. So if the Giants
defeat the Indianapolis Colts, right? The only losses to the Commanders.
They've done it several times. They played the Lions week 1. They went up on the Lions like 31 to something at one point. 30.
But the Lions
battled back.
Interesting, but obviously we can't play because you couldn't get the ball back on the onside kick or something like that.
Just look at all their games. Even when they played the Texans, it was 21-19. Next thing you know, the Eagles scored like 17 points. Like they have a high power because they do the run pass option. So, Jalen can take it and run, or he can give it to their backs that go and make plays. Now he's nifty at getting the ball downfield. I watch a lot of plays, which is scary this year with them, and I hope that doesn't happen against us. I've seen several plays this year with the Eagles where they throw to a receiver down the field and nobody is near them. Like when I say nobody, I mean no. Like the guys are walking into the end zone, which scares me because this is the best record team in football. Man, everybody needs to be covered on this team. Nobody should be that complete open. We've never done anything like that all year. So, guys score on us like that passing play. At least usually somebody's near them or a hit or something of those realms. So hopefully we don't have one of those plays this year. But the Eagles in the history have done every highlight play against the Giants. So who knows? So anything can happen. But the probability is they probably won't win this game. And that's why I was upset that they didn't win the Lions game. Because if you're looking now at your upcoming schedule, you're definitely going to lose to the Cowboys. The Cowboys have owned you over the last couple of years, and you played them on Thanksgiving Day on a short week, coming in after the Lions game and playing absolutely horrific. Now, you do that part, you lose to the Cowboys. So quickly, in a second, you go from 7-2 because you beat the Texans to 7-4
and 1.
Well, that didn't come yet. Now the the Commanders game come, and you're like, hey, believe it or not, Washington plays the Giants pretty tough, even though we've had a little bit more success against them compared to the other two teams in the division. But here goes the other thing. Washington started off. Tyler Heineke's 6-1 since he got there, right? The Redskins were absolutely horrific before they decided to take the fool out, Carson Wentz, right? And Tyler Heinicke, and Tyler Heineke's always played well against the Giants as well too. So once they had Heinicke, I said, crap, he plays well against us. They played the Commanders game. I'm like, guys, you gotta buckle down. You have to win this game. Because if you look on the next week on the schedule, even though you go one game at a time, you can pretty much concede the Philadelphia game as a loss. You lose this game, the win-loss doesn't even work. You get a complete tie, which is like, oh my God. So now, look how the pressure's even worse.
But thanks to the tie, they do keep the sixth seed in the playoffs going into next week.
100%. But I still don't like the fact that when you look at it, and I'm still foreshadowing, but you never know. The Lions are behind us. The Lions beat us, right? The Seahawks are behind us because the Niners have picked up back in the division. So now I'm the biggest Niners fan in the world. Go Niners. Win every one of the last 3 games. Because the Seahawks are also we're ahead of them, but they beat us as well too.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
The Seahawks are knocking on the door.
So exactly. So now the Giants would have to finish with better records than them, those two teams, in order to solidify that spot. So the tie doesn't help, doesn't hurt, but it did hurt. Because even though you're still in that spot, you eventually still have to win. If they lose this week, which they most likely will, now they're 7-5-1. And now the biggest game so far this season will be on the road against the Washington Commanders.
And then later on that season against the Colts, because we're not even going to talk about what's going to happen between the Minnesota Vikings and that last game.
Right. But if we, all right, the only way all of this we're saying right now is null and void is if somehow the football gods bless us and we beat the Eagles on Sunday. We beat the Eagles on Sunday, all bets off. Now we're in better driving control. But if not, you have the Eagles, who's better than you. You have the Commanders, who you should beat, but now you're on the road, and then you tied before. So if you lost, you're in deep trouble. And then they're trailing behind you too, or next to you too. So you don't want to have a tie and a loss to them. And then you have the Colts, like you said, their last home game.
That's a winnable game, but the Colts own the tie. So yeah.
Yes. But we should get that game, but that's the Colts, your last home game. You have the Vikings on the road, who the Vikings are better than us, but sometimes the Vikings can be but still that's down in Minnesota. And then
they were held to 3 points against the Dallas Cowboys. So
right.
Remember why
you have Philly.
Remember why I said earlier episode saying that because the Cowboys had luck against the Vikings last year, they're gonna beat them this year. And I expected to beat them 40-6, 40-3, excuse me.
Right. So and then they have the Eagles the last game of the season. So and hopefully the game will mean nothing to the Eagles and they rest everybody so they'll concede it to us as a win. So besides that, I don't know what else to really say and tell you because they cannot in the next 5 games they can't go 2-3 and they can't go 1-4. They're leaving their destiny in somebody else's hands if they do it that way. So
exactly, and you know what?
They have to win the Washington game. They have to win the Colts game. And believe it or not, they really have to find a way to win the Minnesota game because it depends on how important the game will be week 17 for Philadelphia. But Philadelphia beat Minnesota already. And then it's crazy. I don't like none of them, but we would have to probably cheer for the Cowboys to beat the Eagles so that this way, at the end of the season for that last big spot for the number 1 seed would still be up for grabs. If the Eagles got to really play the last game of the season for that number 1 seed, and because the Cowboys 1 game or behind them or tied, who knows? So before they can even get there, honestly, right now, just looking at the schedule, they got to beat Washington and they got to beat the Colts. That's got to be a given, and they got to figure out how to go to Minnesota and win a game.
And they got to figure out how to win at least one game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And as we talked about, they've improved a lot this season, even too much for the Dallas Cowboys.
We haven't done well against those 2 teams in the last few years. That's all I know.
Yeah, you got an interesting point. Well, all right, on to another segment going on. It's the New York Jets lost in Minnesota. But it's not like they put up a much better fight than I thought they would going up against the Minnesota Vikings team that's been literally OP in 1-score games. Whether they come from behind barely or they have a good early lead and they shut teams out when they get close. The New York Jets, they didn't score a touchdown up until Mike White, up until they were down by like 20-9 at one point. Because the first 3 scores were field goals. After that 1 touchdown, Minnesota got hot and scored at the right time, put it back up by 11. And then they had 2 chances. The Jets had 2 chances to take the lead and win the game. Mike White choked. So,
yeah,
the Jets not being good offensively, or the Vikings they just played better defense.
No, I thought that was I don't blame anybody for. I thought that was a well played game. I thought the Jets played very valiant, and it's tough to win down there. We talked about Minnesota, how tough it is to win down there. It's so interesting. I was watching a sports show a couple weeks back, and I thought the guy was right too. That's why I'm concerned about everything. Like from 2 Jets and Giants teams at that time when they both had the same record, and they clearly almost have the same record. We had that stupid tie there on the other part of ours.
NFL needs to get rid of ties, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, they do. I hate it. So the question was, who has a better chance of making the playoffs based off the status at that time was the Jets or the Giants, and one guy advocated for the Giants, the other guy advocated for the Jets. They're right. It was the Jets because the Jets have the lighter part of the schedule coming up per se, even though that's the thing we keep saying. Lighter part of the schedule doesn't mean it's a lighter part of the schedule. It's about how you're playing them when you play them. So, nevertheless, The Jets played well. That was a tough game. And here goes the other thing we got to remember about Mike White. I think Mike White is a solid, good backup quarterback or solid key quarterback, definitely in the league when you need it, when a guy is down and so on and so forth. He can play. He's not a scrub. He's definitely not Cooper Rush to me. You know what I mean? But we also have to remember he is a backup for a reason. So that's the biggest enigma with the Jets going forward. That's why I was telling my guy that's a big Jets fan that when he said, who has the better future, the Jets or Giants? I said, their future is the same because they still have questions at the quarterback that they have to figure out in the future. Are they going forward with this guy? I don't like the direction of what's going on with Zach Wilson now. Not even so much on the field. I don't like what's going on mentally with him. And
he doesn't hold himself accountable after the only two
right
against New England Patriots. And you know what? It's one of those games where neither quarterback did anything for neither team, but it all it took was a special teams score in order for the Patriots to beat them.
Yeah, and let me tell you something too about he's got a lot of maturing to do, and he better get cerebral. He's fortunate that he's their draft pick. You understand? So this is now, even after this season, they'll only be going into his third season. So you usually don't ship a guy away, but you can be shipped. Ask Baker Mayfield, right? So now with that being said, he has like one more chance with the Jets, and it's coming up this upcoming season. And he better be careful because they might think about the other things. He has to mature, and he has to start getting better at learning NFL offenses. You have to keep yourself healthy and get out there and learn, because we'll give you a learning curve in time, because everybody doesn't develop and flourish in the NFL at the same time. Some guys develop late. However, you are a young quarterback, and there are young quarterbacks that are coming in and doing phenomenal. Lamar Jackson is a young quarterback. He's won an MVP. You know what I mean? That's just one example. There are other young quarterbacks that are coming in and doing solid early. In Justin Fields, still progressing, doing very solid for himself, right? There are many quarterbacks who are young and doing those type of things. So they're not going to have that time for you forever. And if you start losing the Jets locker room and the fan base, especially the fan base, they're loyal. You're done in New York. They'll trade you. They will trade you quick. The Jets. So
yeah, I know they did that with Sam Darnold after only 2 weeks.
Yes,
they did that with Sam Darnold. Like seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And Sam Darnold started disconnecting from the team and the fans, and wasn't doing. And what happened? Like you said, they traded him. So he better be very careful and get himself together, because he probably has one more really big opportunity and chance with the Jets. After that, he's done. So, but now they have a tough pickle on their hands, because they have the Buffalo Bills this week, who I know is going to absolutely want to kill them, especially since the Jets beat them earlier in the year.
The Detroit Lions and Jacksonville Jaguars, and we learned our lesson not to underestimate the Detroit Lions. But Jacksonville, correct, get that one. Oh yeah,
Jacksonville they should get.
Oh yeah, then they got to go on the road to play the Seattle Seahawks and the Miami Dolphins.
Right, and so, see, here goes the scary part.
Don't worry. After the Giants played two of the teams that we just mentioned, we know not to underestimate the Seahawks or the Lions. The Seahawks are battling with the 49ers for the division. So,
NFL.
At that point, you better pray to God that Jets defeat the Seahawks anyway, for the sake of helping out the New York Giants.
Well, we're right. The NFL always through history is the sport with the most parity. You cannot go. All right, look, the Las Vegas Raiders have had a bad year, right? In the last few weeks, the Las Vegas Raiders have been winning football games, but today they lost on a 10 seconds after the game to Baker Mayfield, a guy who got cut.
Mayfield went Tom Brady on him.
Right, he got cut from one team because he's playing absolutely horrific and egregious, and then he comes to the Rams, who has a little bit better pieces around, and he leads them to a win today. Now the Rams are still terrible. They're not going to go nowhere. They're on the Super Bowl high. Their season is over.
I told you about the Super Bowl hangover earlier this season.
Yeah.
Don't play the Super Bowl hangover. Don't do that.
No, they're on a Super Bowl. They're done. Their season's done. Whatever it is, they're done. I don't care what happened tonight. But the all-in factor is that there's no off weeks in football. You have to play the team, and it's how you're playing them at that time. So look at the stretch you're talking about. They have Buffalo this week. Buffalo's going to want to redeem themselves, and Buffalo's at home. So you're going to probably say that Buffalo should get this win, right? Now, after that, you're telling me that they have the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are a very solid football team who are still fighting in that hunt. So that's not going to be no cakewalk. They have the Jaguars who they should win. But now that's going to be one of those pressure games because if they do happen to drop the 2 games before, it's a must win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So if you catch that win as a win, now you're going to have their last 2 games of the season against teams that are fighting for playoff spots, which is Seattle and the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins, that one will be in Miami, who they're fighting for their lives as well, too, especially since they just lost the other day, too, as well. Really bad. So it's going to get interesting at the end of the year. But the Jets do have games that their manager is going to win. Luckily, their defense is playing so well. Mike White probably won't play like that again. But, we'll see what happens over time. But in the future, in the offseason, they should draft another quarterback and give Zach a chance. And then if Zach's not working out, it's time to move on.
Exactly. And, well, there's going to be a lot of interesting quarterbacks coming out in next year's NFL drafts. But that's a conversation for another day.
Right.